The man went to the hospital for cancer removal surgery, only to find out it was too late. The cancer cells had already spread throughout her body. But the man, knowing the truth, wasn't angry at all. Instead, he clutched the good luck charm his wife left behind and burst into laughter. Because in his eyes, only this kind of ending, leaving no descendants, could comfort his wife's soul. But when he opened his eyes again, he saw dusty red wedding paper cuts on the windows of his old home. He searched frantically inside and outside the house, finally seeing Zhou Yao naked, curled up on the cold dirt bed. Her big eyes held only deathly stillness. Her originally fair and flawless skin was covered in crisscrossing purple bruises. Seeing again this woman he had longed for half his life, the man's eyes instantly turned red. He rushed forward and embraced her tightly. His chest filled with guilt and longing choked his throat, ultimately turning into uncontrollable sobs of anguish. In his past life, he had deliberately framed Zhou Yao, causing her to fall into the water. So the whole village saw him and the woman he rescued were disheveled. The woman he rescued. To protect her reputation, Zhou Yao had no choice but to marry him. But since marrying into the family, Zhou Yao hadn't had a single good day. She suffered endless torment in his relentless domestic violence. Eventually, Zhou Yao, holding their young child, jumped into the reservoir. It wasn't until her older brother-in-law recovered their bodies from the river that this man finally woke up. Later, he took advantage of the opportunities of the times and earned wealth he couldn't spend in 10 lifetimes. But the woman who taught him how to grow with her life could never come back. Just as he was immersed in the ecstasy of rebirth. "Get away. Don't touch me." A woman's piercing cry suddenly came from his arms. Looking at Zhou Yao, trembling uncontrollably, he suddenly remembered that just the day before, he had taken Zhou Yao's money borrowed from her family to buy rice cereal for the child. He spent it all on alcohol. Thinking of this, he raised his hand and slapped himself across the face a dozen times. Fresh blood quickly flowed down the corners of his mouth. Zhou Yao coldly watched his actions, a sarcastic smile curving her lips. She'd already lost count of how many times this had happened. After all, every time he sobered up, he would kneel and beg for forgiveness. But in less than 2 days, his fists and feet would once again be landing on her. She could endure the humiliation of his abuse in bed, but she couldn't stand her child going hungry, not even able to get a drop of milk. The baby's weak cries finally brought a glimmer of life to Zhou Yao's dead eyes. He hurriedly threw on some clothes and scooped up their wailing daughter. Because of long-term malnutrition, Zhou Yao had no breast milk at all. That's why the baby was crying so much from hunger. The baby's cries instantly startled her awake. She immediately got out of bed and picked up her clothes from the floor. "Honey, you wait for me. I'll go get our little girl something to eat right away." As soon as he said that, he strode quickly toward the village store. Old man Huang at the village store saw him and, flashing his yellow teeth, asked, "What liquor you want this time?" "Uncle Huang, can I get some rice cereal on credit? I'll pay you back tomorrow." Old man Huang heard that he wanted to buy on credit again. He sized up the red and swollen handprint on his face and said nothing. He turned and took a bag of rice cereal from the shelf and handed it to him. He thanked him repeatedly and hurried home, clutching the rice cereal. But as soon as he came in and saw his wife still huddled in the corner, another wave of piercing pain went through his heart. "Honey, I got the rice cereal. I'm warning you, don't you dare sell my daughter. Otherwise, I curse you. The Zhang family will die out with no descendants." Hearing this, she was instantly stunned. He then remembered himself in his previous life, really planning to sell their daughter to a family in town in exchange for liquor. He cursed himself in his heart for all the horrible things he'd done. No wonder he ended up the way he did in his past life. He deserved it. He quickly and gently placed the rice cereal on the dilapidated small bed. "I swear I will never sell our little girl. I'm going to town tomorrow to find work." With that, he turned and walked out of the house. He reached the courtyard and slapped himself hard across the face a few times. He remembered clearly that Zhou Yao had drowned herself and their daughter this very month. Just thinking about it made him tremble uncontrollably. He saw that it was getting late. They had run out of food at home long ago. 20 minutes later, he appeared at the foot of the back mountain. He tore off the elastic band from his underwear and made a makeshift slingshot. The pebble shot out, startling a turtle dove, which flapped its wings and flew away. After he became successful in his past life, He became obsessed with shooting sports and was very skilled with a slingshot. He squatted in the bushes for quite a while and caught a plump pheasant with a net. He also shot 4 turtle doves with his slingshot. All 4 turtle doves together weighed only about half a pound, but the pheasant weighed a full 5 pounds. He tied the prey with vines and hung it on a tree branch, ready to take it home. But suddenly, he realized that the thing on his back was gone. He instantly broke out in a cold sweat and thought he had encountered something supernatural. Just then, he saw the good luck charm hanging around his neck suddenly flash with a faint light. This good luck charm was something Zhou Yao had always kept close to her in her previous life, until she took it off before she jumped into the river and threw it by the reservoir. When he looked again, the light from the good luck charm had disappeared. He couldn't help but reach out and touch the good luck charm. The next second, he was directly transported into a strange space. The area of this space wasn't even as big as the hospital room he lived in his previous life. After repeated testing, he understood that holding the good luck charm allowed him to enter the space. Thinking about going out would immediately return him to reality. With this cheat, he knew he could make a comeback in this life. On the way home, he saw that many families in the village had electricity, but his family was still using a dim kerosene lamp. Even the worst years of the natural disasters had passed. How could my own family be struggling to even eat? He carried the prey straight into the kitchen. When it was completely dark, he walked into the main room carrying a large bowl of pigeon soup. "Yao Yao, dinner time. I made pigeon soup to help you produce milk," he called out 3 times in a row. Only then did Yao Yao slowly walk out from the inner room. Seeing the large bowl of pigeon soup on the table, she didn't make any move to get closer. She just stood there. Her eyes were filled with unyielding resentment. Looking at his wife's old clothes covered in patches, his heart ached again. In this era of scarcity, Zhou Yao's appearance was still exceptionally outstanding. But this bastard, after marrying her, didn't appreciate her in the slightest. Looking at her wary appearance, he knew clearly that as long as he was here, she definitely wouldn't touch the food. "I'll eat in the kitchen." After saying that, he turned and walked out. Zhou Yao stood there, stunned, staring at the bowl full of pigeon soup. Is this a dream? Or is this the last meal prepared for me? In the past, whenever there was food in the house, he always made sure to eat his fill first. She could only drink some dishwater. So, even though she was starving, Zhou Yao didn't dare to touch it easily. Until he reached the door and saw him squatting under the window, drinking soup. A large, plump wild pheasant was hanging at the kitchen door. Only then did she guess that he must have gone into the mountains to hunt. Zhou Yao finally turned around and went back to the main room. She picked up the bowl and took small sips. After she finished eating, he, under her wary gaze, took over all the dishwashing duties. He used to be a complete slacker. This was probably the first time he had seriously done housework in this family. After finishing these chores, thinking about the bastardly things he did during the day, he went to boil a pot of hot water again. He carried it into the room. "Yao Yao, use this water to wash yourself." After saying that and putting down the basin, he turned and hurried out. He sat guarding the doorway. After a long while, faint sounds of water finally came from inside the house. He looked up at the starry sky. In his mind, he was figuring out ways to make money tomorrow. He had to improve the family situation as soon as possible. It was already late fall heading into winter. The weather was 20 below zero. Everything froze instantly. His wife and daughter both needed new winter clothes. Otherwise, the two of them wouldn't make it through the winter. Hearing the water sounds stop inside, he got up and went into the house. Seeing him appear suddenly, Zhou Yao was frightened and backed away repeatedly. "Don't come any closer." Seeing this, he cursed himself inwardly for being such a beast before. He also knew that her trauma couldn't be healed anytime soon. So he softened his tone and reminded his wife, "I'm just coming in to take the water out." After saying that, he picked up the basin of water from the ground and walked outside. Zhou Yao ignored him. Seeing him leave, she quickly got dressed. In the courtyard, he used the hot water his wife had used to quickly wash himself. After all, to hunt those few turtle doves. He'd been lying in the grass for the better part of the day. After washing, he sat on the doorstep, thinking back to his experiences in his previous life. He remembered that in his past life, some out-of-towners always wanted to go into the mountains to collect things, and were afraid of getting lost. So they hired him, who had nothing better to do, as a guide. At the time, he just thought these city folks had too much time on their hands and nothing better to do. But after going with them a few times, he figured out how to harvest wild dendrobium. Now he could totally rely on digging up wild dendrobium to sell for money. Thinking of this, he immediately perked up. He quickly tied a torch and prepared some not-so-professional tools. He shouted into the house, "Yao Yao! Lock the door tight. I'm going out." Once he left, he stayed in the mountains all night. He didn't get home until 4 in the morning. It was also lucky for him. When he was coming down the mountain, he accidentally found a ferret badger. A civet had abandoned several baby ferret badgers that hadn't opened their eyes yet. He got back home and skillfully processed the game. He left one in the kitchen and then went to town with 2 bamboo baskets. There's a market in town on odd-numbered days. He found a crowded spot and took the ferret badger meat and pelts out of the baskets. "Hey, young man, you've got some good mountain goods there." He'd been thinking that if he couldn't sell them, he'd take them back and stew them in a pot to give his older brother, second brother, and third sister a little extra. Unexpectedly, as soon as he set things out, someone came up and asked the price. An elderly couple saw how tanned he was and could tell at a glance that he came from the mountains. Plus, the price was reasonable. They bought 2 in one go. In this era, you need ration coupons to eat meat. Only mountain goods like these that don't require coupons can be freely bought and sold. The old woman said she was taking it back to give her little grandson a treat. As she was leaving, the old woman grabbed the old man's clothes and had him peel off all the ferret badger skins to take with them. She said she was going to make gloves for her grandson. Just like that, in less than 2 hours, all the ferret badgers were sold. Afterward, he took the Dendrobium nobile orchids he had gathered the day before to the old established pharmacy in town. The moment he took out the Dendrobium nobile orchids, the old shopkeeper, wearing thick glasses, stared with wide eyes. The old shopkeeper carefully took the orchids, recognizing their value, and examined them closely for a long time. Then he held out his hand and signaled a price. "Young man, this price." Seeing the price he offered, he frowned slightly. This guy was treating him like a bumpkin from the mountains and trying to rip him off. So, he reached out to take back his things. Seeing this, the old man reached out and stopped him. Then, stroking his goatee, he soothed, "If you're not happy with the price, we can discuss it. 6 yuan bills can't go any higher." Although this Dendrobium nobile orchid was accidentally stepped on by him, but its value is worth far more than that. But who told me to be so desperate for cash? My wife and kid are at home starving. After a moment's thought, you decide to sell it. Then you went and bought meat and flour. It took hitting up 2 supply and marketing co-ops to find the rare milk powder from this era. Just before heading back, you thought about the patched-up old clothes your wife wore yesterday. So you went into the only small state-owned department store in town. On the way back, you took a detour to find an old hunter in his 70s. You gave the guy a bunch of food and managed to trade him for his precious hunting rifle. You need ration tickets to eat meat these days. If you want to be able to eat meat whenever you want, you gotta do it yourself. Almost home, you finally saw Zoya working in the fields with the kid on her back. And when your older brother, Zhao Zhenxing, saw you coming, he blew a fuse. "Where the hell have you been? Leaving your wife to work the fields by herself?" "I went into town to find some work. I also picked up some meat and flour on the way back. Tonight, bring your wife and kids over to our place for dinner." Looking at your older brother in front of you, your nose tingled with emotion. Hearing those words, your older brother sized you up and down with a suspicious look, noticing the mud splatters on your pants legs, and then looking at the fully loaded basket. Your sister-in-law just steamed a pot of cornbread buns at noon. Have your wife take some back to eat later. Treat your sister-in-law well from now on. So, you didn't say anything else. After nodding, you carried the things home on your back. If you want to win over your wife, you must first win over her stomach. And so, you started busying yourself in the kitchen. When it was almost dark, Yao came home with a few cornbread buns. But as soon as she walked into the courtyard, she smelled the aroma of meat from the kitchen. So, she quickly came to the kitchen doorway and saw you standing in front of the simple stove, busy at work. Yao had been busy all day and was already so hungry that her stomach was sticking to her spine. After putting the cornbread buns away, she went into the bedroom and placed the sleeping baby on the small bed. Just turning your head, you saw a can of powdered milk on the table. Yao's blood rushed to her head. She ran into the kitchen and slapped you across the face. Did you go and force my mom to give you money again? How can you be such a scumbag? Your wife suddenly bringing up this incident. You slowly started to remember that this jerk had indeed threatened his mother-in-law with a knife for money before. So you quickly denied it, saying, I didn't, this money. I earned it all today. Saying this, you quickly reached towards your crotch. Seeing this scene, Zhou Yao got even angrier. Immediately, she stepped forward and gave you another hard slap. This is no time to be thinking about that stuff. Taking 2 slaps in a row left you not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Zhou Yao didn't seem to want to stop. You quickly pulled out the 5 10 yuan bills from your crotch. Honey, this is the money I earned today. Take it. Zhou Yao, seeing the bills being shoved into her hand, felt a wave of dizziness. Seeing his wife about to fall, you reached out to help, but Zhou Yao slapped your hand away fiercely. She couldn't believe it. You, such a lazy bum, could earn so much money in one day. What shady dealings did he get into outside? What are we gonna do? It's impossible to live like this. You saw that Zhou Yao didn't believe a word you said, and almost knelt down to her. I went up the mountain last night to pick wild dendrobium, and also happened to find a fruit, and traded those things from the raccoon's den for 60 yuan. I spent 10 yuan buying food, and this is all that's left. Hearing about the dendrobium, Zhou Yao's eyes finally showed a little bit of life. There's ginseng in the north, and dendrobium in the south. That stuff is really valuable. It can be sold for money, but they all grow in the deep mountains. They're really hard to find, especially in the pitch black of night. But thinking about it carefully, there were bloodstains by the well this morning, and there's civet cat meat stewing in the pot. Could it be that I really wronged him? But how does he know about dendrobium? Under Zhou Yao's gaze, you raise your right hand and swear, I really didn't do anything bad. Or may I die childless. Seeing that his wife's breathing was a little more even, and her eyes weren't so fierce, he breathed a sigh of relief. Yao Yao, quickly put the money away. I'll go take some meat to my older brother's family. Let them have a taste too. Although it's safer in the hidden space, giving money to his wife means handing over control of the household. Then you picked up a plate of stir-fried civet cat meat and the stewed Christian carp tofu soup and put it on the table in the main room. Then went back to the kitchen and ladled a full bowl of meat and headed towards his older brother's house. On the way, he also paid back old man Huang for the rice paste and the alcohol he owed before, while Go Yao stared at the big bills in her hand and hurried back to the house. For the 2 years since she married him, you always squeezed money from him. This is the first time you've taken the initiative to hand over money. So she divided the money into 5 parts and hid them separately. After finishing all this, she heard steady footsteps coming from outside. He walked out of the house, looking at the steaming dishes on the table. She was a little dazed for a moment. Then she went to the kitchen and took a look. The flour jar was more than half full, and the oil jar was also full. There was also a slab of pork belly weighing more than 10 pounds hanging from the roof beam. Has he really changed? At this time, Zhou Yao couldn't be sure. After all, a leopard can't change its spots. Seeing Zhou Yao sit down, you then put a pheasant leg in his bowl. I'm hitting the mountains first thing tomorrow, before winter really sets in. I need to gather all the dendrobium I can find. It's the fastest way to make some cash right now. Once things open up nationwide, I'll use that money to invest. Hearing you say that, Zhou Yao paused for a second, then nodded, without saying a word. Last night was just a stroke of dumb luck. Stumbling upon a dendrobium plant. He can't expect to get that lucky every time. Zhou Yao is going to suggest you find a job if you really want to make money each day. Even if it's only a few cents. It's better than no income at all. But thinking about your personality, as long as you aren't out gambling, I guess I'll let you drink if you want to. He reached for the chicken leg in his bowl, wanting to put it back. Seeing him do that, you quickly used the kid as an excuse to stop your wife. You're too skinny. Eat more. Otherwise, the baby won't have enough milk. Even the best formula can't compare to breast milk. Plus, formula is expensive and hard to find. This is Christian carp and tofu soup. It'll help you produce milk. That made Zhou Yao glare at you. The knuckles on her hand gripping the chopsticks turned white. But she didn't refuse again. You spent all day and night working hard today. Exhausted and sleepy. At least the family's livelihood problem is finally solved. After filling your stomach, you said directly, Honey, I'm going to sleep first. Getting up, you bent over and went into the inner room and crashed as soon as your head hit the pillow. After Zhou Yao finished washing the dishes, she was quick to get back to the house. She saw your clothes on the floor and frowned, then picked them up and washed the clothes by moonlight. After finishing up, she dragged her tired body back to the bedroom. He stumbled, kicking the wicker basket. Zhou Yao picked it up and looked. It was a brand new set of women's clothes and 3 sets of baby clothes. So she stared at you while you were sound asleep for quite a while. I can't quite figure this guy out. You slept like a log. The little one woke up twice during the night, but she couldn't manage to wake you. Not until early morning. Did you groggily open your eyes? You turned over and saw Zhou Yao curled up, with her back to you. She was only wearing an old, worn-out tank top. It made you drool a little. After all, after Zhou Yao died in your past life, you never looked at another woman. So you reached out and pulled her into your arms. It all felt like a dream, so unreal. Just as you were about to lean in for a kiss, the woman in your arms suddenly stiffened. She was clearly resisting your touch. So you suppressed the bitterness in your heart and got out of bed. Got to just lay low for a while. You took the clean clothes off the clothesline, not even caring that they weren't completely dry. You quickly put them on. Then you tiptoed over and took the things out of the basket and put them on the table. At that moment, Zhou Yao sat up in bed and said to you with a cold look, "If you really want to change, go find a job. If you're willing to work hard, you can make $10 a month. We can get by." Hearing his wife talk to him made you happy, knowing that Zhou Yao was thinking of you. But heaven gave you a second chance. You have to save up enough startup capital before everything opens up. After your wife and daughter left in your past life, you were like a stray dog, wandering around for a while. Then you met a benefactor, who gave you the chance to work as a clerk in a state-owned store. Because you were sweet-talking, you gradually got promoted to manager. That's also how you got the chance to rub elbows with those big shots. In this life, he's gonna rely on his own 2 hands to earn his first pot of gold as quick as he can. So, hunting and gathering dendrobium is the fastest way to make money right now. More importantly, he now has the memories of his past life. He knows where to find dendrobium. An opportunity this good. How could you possibly pass it up? He just doesn't know how to explain to his wife why he's so insistent on going up the mountain to gather dendrobium. Zhou Yao sees you're not saying anything. Knows this guy's being stubborn. So she just pulls up the covers and lays back down. There's still cornmeal buns left for you in the pot on the stove in the kitchen. Hearing her words, you raise an eyebrow, your face full of barely concealed joy. You then come to the bedside and kiss Zhou Yao on the cheek. "Wife, I talked to our big brother yesterday. You don't need to go help them out today. When you have time, take half of the pork in the kitchen and send it over to my mother-in-law." And Zhou Yao, seeing you come close, thought she'd angered you, and you were going to hit her again. But she didn't expect you to steal a kiss. She didn't hear clearly what you said, nor did she see that you kissed your daughter before you left. By the time she came back to her senses, you were long gone. In the dim room, only she and her daughter sleeping in the little bed remained. Although it's still early, she tosses and turns, unable to fall back asleep. She just lays in bed until the sun's shining on her butt. Then she hears someone knocking on the door outside. "Second sister-in-law, what brings you over so early?" "Little fourth's wife. I heard from big sister-in-law that you guys had meet last night." Lu Hohat's eyes dart around the kitchen, smiling like crazy. She doesn't even wait for a reply. Her feet seem to have eyes. Heading straight for the kitchen door. Headed straight for the kitchen door. Good heavens. That lousy didn't go and steal or rob, did he? How much money does a big chunk of meat like that cost? It's been almost half a year since anyone's seen meat. The kid's been making a fuss for days, but we couldn't bring ourselves to buy any. It was hard enough to look away. But then I caught sight of the dark wall. There was even half a pheasant hanging there. He totally lost it. Lao Si's wife, you better keep an eye on your man. Gambling. He might even end up in a re-education camp. Zhou Yao's face gradually darkened as she listened. If talking nonsense like that was illegal, the police would arrest him. You don't need to worry. Second sister-in-law, don't you have anything better to do? Lu Hohat wanted to say something else, but her eyes darted around, as if she had thought of something. She swallowed the words that were on the tip of her tongue. Don't get mad at me, second sister-in-law. Aren't I just worried about our Lao Si? My husband and him are brothers. My Xiaobao is crying because he wants to eat meat. Could you lend me 5 pounds of meat first? I'll have your second brother bring you the money later. After more than 2 years of getting to know her, Zhou Yao knew her like the back of her hand. She had long figured out what kind of person this second sister-in-law was. Once something goes into her house, it's gone for good. Asking for 5 pounds of meat right off the bat. It's not that I can't make the decision, but even if I lent it to her, even if I was in charge of the household, I couldn't just make a decision like that. I can't make that call. Second sister-in-law, wait for Lao Si to come back and talk to him. Saying this, she walked over and bolted the kitchen door. Lu Hoha was very unhappy. Seeing her like this. Okay, when Lao Si comes back, remember to tell him to bring the meat to my house. As she turned to leave, the smile on Lu Hohat's face disappeared. Meanwhile, on the mountain, it was almost noon. You rely on the memories of your past life. It took quite a bit of effort to finally find a wild Dendrobium nobile. Having the experience of groping around in the dark yesterday, by the time the Dendrobium showed most of its roots, it was already dusk, and this one was much bigger than yesterday's. It wasn't until the sky was completely dark that you carefully dug out the large clump completely. Just as you were about to head down the mountain to go home, you turned around and ran into a deer. It looked like it had come to nibble on the Dendrobium. Seeing this, you quickly took out the hunting rifle you traded for yesterday from your magical space. But a gunshot echoed through the forest, startling the birds to scatter and flee. Meanwhile, at home, Zhou Yao had already prepared dinner and warmed up the milk powder for your daughter. Still, you hadn't returned, so she frowned. Dendrobium is not so easy to find. He still needs to learn a practical skill. Just as Zhou Yao was lost in thought, you quietly walked into the yard. It wasn't until you took the things out of the basket that Zhou Yao inside the house heard the noise. She walked out holding her daughter. Wash your hands and let's eat, she said, and went back into the house with her daughter. You noticed your wife glanced at the basket, but didn't say anything. When you entered the house and saw the steaming hot meal on the table, your eyes welled up. You wished you could go back to your previous life and slap yourself to death. Such a beautiful and virtuous wife. Why didn't you cherish her? You walked to the table and sat down, devouring the food. Honey, I'm going to the village chief's house later. Let's get the electric wires for our house hooked up these next few days and get electricity. But that means paying an electricity bill every month from now on, she said, stealing a glance at you, afraid of irritating you and making you flip the table. You keenly caught Zhou Yao's expression and immediately put down your chopsticks. You walked to the door and carried the basket into the house. Honey, this is what I dug up today. I'll take it to the pharmacy in the city to sell it another day. Should be able to get a decent price for it. Zhou Yao was staring straight at that wild dendrobium. You raised your eyes and looked at her and asked in an incredulous tone, You really dug this up? I swear I didn't steal it. This is really the result of my digging in the mountains all day. Zhou Yao saw the sincerity on your face and nodded with some doubt. Your second sister-in-law came over during the day. She wanted to borrow 5 pounds of pork. Seeing Zhou Yao's long face, she was obviously unhappy. Probably because I wasn't home. And your second sister-in-law upset her. So you said with a serious face, From now on, you're in charge of this family. You're in charge of the money and everything else. If you don't want to lend it, then we won't lend it. Zhou Yao felt uneasy after hearing what you said. She pondered for a long time before timidly saying, I don't want to lend it to my second sister-in-law. She says she's borrowing it, but she definitely won't return it. This isn't the first time she's borrowed something from us and not returned it. Hearing Zhou Yao's words, a happy smile appeared on your face. You playfully scratched her nose. Zhou Yao was stunned by your smile. Then she picked up her daughter, got up, and went to the inner room. You, on the other hand, after filling your stomach, washed the dishes and chopsticks, then cut off 1/2 pound of meat, and went out in the dark. The village chief, Wang Xuanju, was stunned when he saw your dark face. Stunned, then saw the meat in your hand, and his wrinkled face broke into a smile. Bloom, asking as he took the meat from your hand. Zhao Kuan, what's up so late, coming to see your uncle? What's the matter? I want to get an electric light in my house. Do you have time to help arrange it? Sure, I'll arrange it for you tomorrow. Then thank you. When you heard him say this, you didn't say much else. He stood up and thanked them. Then he turned and left. But as he walked into the kitchen, he saw Zhou Yao in the dark, dingy kitchen, gnawing on the leftover meat bones he had eaten. The sight stung his eyes. His blood seemed to freeze. Then he said in a hoarse voice, What are you doing? Zhou Yao shuddered when she heard his voice. Startled. The bone in her mouth fell to the ground. She looked at him in the courtyard with a terrified expression. Don't hit me. These are all the ones you left over. I just thought it was a shame to throw them away. At that moment, he felt like he'd been struck by lightning. He had never felt so defeated. Then he knelt down in front of her with a thud. Yo Yao screamed in fright. What do you want? Do Yao lowered her eyes slightly, looking at the man kneeling in front of her, until she felt a warm, wet sensation on her chest. She started to cry. Her long-closed heart seemed to soften a little. Seeing your wife so scared to eat your leftovers like that is like a knife twisting in your gut. So you get up from the floor, cupping your wife's pale cheeks in your hands. You lean down and kiss away the tears from the corner of her eyes. Honey, go wait in the main room. When the food's ready, I'll bring it in. You're my savior. Zhou Yao didn't understand what he meant. She was embarrassed as hell and scurried out of the kitchen. After busying around the kitchen for a while, a plate of fragrant stir-fried pork slices was ready. The coarse grain bun that scratched his throat, his wife treasured, not wanting to eat even a bite. But as soon as he walked into the inner room, a vision of snowy white beauty met his eyes. In that instant, blood rushed to his groin. You step forward and wrap your arms around her from behind. Lost in it all, Zhou Yao felt for the first time that doing something like this was so comfortable and enjoyable. This was the first time since their wedding that they had slept together so intimately. Thinking about the scene from last night, Yo Yao felt her cheeks flush. When she turned her head and saw the child on the small bed, Yo Yao was so frightened that her face turned pale. She didn't seem to hear her daughter crying all night yesterday. Seeing his wife suddenly change, her eyes staring straight at their daughter, he quickly got out of bed. He rushed his daughter's crib in a few steps. He saw that his daughter was already awake and smiling with her big eyes. At this moment, looking at his daughter, his heart melted. He carefully picked up his daughter. He returned to the bed, seeing that his daughter was okay and was still grinning. The big stone in Zhou Yao's heart finally fell to the ground. Her tense nerves also relaxed. Then her eyes turned red. She almost cried. She regretted how deeply she had slept last night. A child so young. If something went wrong, how could she live? Honey, you lie down with Nyo for a while. I'll go make you breakfast. Zhou Yao checked the diaper under her daughter's, but although the diaper wasn't perfectly positioned, it had been changed and was clean. No wonder she didn't hear her daughter crying last night. It turned out that this bastard had gotten up and taken care of their daughter. This was the first time since giving birth that he had proactively taken care of their child. So, has he really changed? Can she trust him again? Meanwhile, he was skillfully busy in the kitchen. By the time his wife came out holding their child, the meal was ready. Tofu and small green vegetables, cornmeal mush, plus whole grain buns. He, shirtless, took the child from Zhou Yao's arms. Honey, you go wash up first. But Zhou Yao was still a little worried. But watching you clumsily hold such a small child, she chuckled. That's your own daughter. She's not a tiger. What's she gonna do, bite you? During dinner, village chief Wang Xuanzhu arrived with the electrician. As soon as they entered the yard, they saw Yo Yao sitting at the table in the yard, eating. You were shirtless, holding the baby, strolling around the yard. He noticed a neat ring of teeth marks on the inside of your arm. He smiled meaningfully. Zhao Kun hasn't even finished eating yet. You didn't expect Wang Xuanzhu to find someone so early. You led the village chief and electrician to the gate outside the yard to chat. After Zhou Yao finished eating and went back inside, you handed the baby over to your wife. Then, you pulled out a pack of Deqianmen cigarettes from the pocket of your loose shorts. The village chief looked at the Deqianmen cigarette in his hand, grinned, revealing his yellow teeth, and said with a smile, You little rascal. You're doing all right for yourself. This stuff costs 40 cents a pack. The electrician next to him smiled even more guilelessly. He tucked the cigarette behind his ear. He shouldered the ladder and went around to the back of the house. This job was worth it. 40 cents a pack for smokes. He usually couldn't afford to treat himself. This family sure is generous. Once the power's on, you went back inside. He had just stepped in when a piece of clothing came flying at him. Before he could figure out what was happening, he heard Zhou Yao say, Put your shirt on, quick. What kind of way is that to be walking around shirtless? He now had several scratch marks on his back. Yo Yao left those last night. The village chief and the electrician both saw them. But neither of them said anything. But you didn't know any of this. Walking around shirtless. It embarrassed Though Yao so much. She wanted to crawl into a hole and die. With other people around. She was too embarrassed to say anything. Not until after you went up the mountain. Yao held her burning cheeks for a good while to cool down. Then she finally started taking the bedding off to wash it. She moved the baby's crib to the courtyard. And put the baby in it. She filled a basin with water. Getting ready to wash the bedding. Just then, Zhou's mother came with a basket over her arm. It was full of eggs. And a small piece of meat. Yao saw her mother and quickly wiped her hands to get up. Mom, what are you doing here? Zhou's mother carried the basket into the kitchen. And looked her daughter up and down. Seeing her worn out and ill-fitting clothes, her eyes stung. She quickly looked away. And picked up her granddaughter from the crib. She said, "We just finished up at home. So I came to see how you were doing." As she said this, her eyes scanned the dilapidated 3-room adobe thatched house. She was constantly filled with regret. She shouldn't have agreed to this marriage. She'd ruined her daughter's life. Yao, I've been thinking. If you really can't make it work with him, just get a divorce. You're young, you have a long life ahead of you. You can't spend your whole life being ruined by a good-for-nothing like him. Yao heard her mom's words. And was stunned for a moment. She sat on the stool for a long time without saying a word. The other day, when he stole the money you borrowed from your family to buy rice cereal for the baby. To buy wine. She truly felt utter despair. She felt like she couldn't see any hope with him at all. The thought of dying even crossed her mind. She even thought about holding the baby and jumping into the reservoir. But after you sobered up, you started by slapping yourself in the face a dozen times in regret. And then you went out in a panic to buy rice cereal for the baby. Over the past few days, it seems like you've really changed. You haven't been out messing around. You don't drink anymore. And you don't gamble anymore either. Zhou's mother looked at her daughter with her head down, not saying anything, and assumed she was worried about the baby. So she said, "If you want to take the baby, Mom can help you take care of the baby later." She hesitated a bit when she said that. It's just that it'll be hard for you to remarry if you're at home with the kid. Divorce is really rare these days. No matter how tough things get, a woman has to grit her teeth and bear it. Hearing her own mom thinking so thoroughly about her remarrying after a divorce, Yao took the baby from her mom's arms. "Mom, I'm not thinking about getting a divorce right now. He seems to be slowly changing for the better." As she said that, she tugged at the baby's brand new little outfit. "He earned the money to buy this outfit for the baby. And he bought me a set of clothes too. But I haven't brought myself to wear them yet." Zhou's mom gazed at her daughter's fair, youthful face, which had a rosy glow she hadn't seen in a long time. Her eyes seemed to have lit up again too. She couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. Just yesterday, she overheard Motzi from next door saying that he owed someone $50. That's a huge debt. And he doesn't do any real work. How's he ever gonna pay it back? That's exactly why. She was worried. She came over early this morning with some things to check on her. But her daughter's expression didn't seem fake. Thinking about that, she didn't tell her daughter what she had heard. Afraid it would cause her to be upset with you. She gathered her thoughts and nodded in relief, with tears welling up in her eyes. If he can change, that would be great. Then I'd be relieved. As she said that, she raised her hand and wiped away the tears flowing from the corners of her eyes. You just went up the mountain. You're walking with a cornbread bun in your mouth, calculating how much it would cost to build a 2-story house these days. Based on the current price of dendrobium that I can dig up, after building the house, there would still be a considerable amount of savings in this era. After all, at this time, there aren't many millionaires. Thinking that he'll definitely be staying in the village for the next couple of years, he'll improve the living conditions first. The family is currently living in 3 dilapidated mud brick houses. After entering the house, I feel like I can't even stand up straight with my height. Inside the house, the dust was even worse. Everything was crumbling. This place ain't fit for humans. You had no clue at the time. Your mother-in-law was discussing divorce with your wife. If you had found out about that, you probably wouldn't have been in the mood to go up the mountain to dig for dendrobium. After all, you've been given a second chance. Making money is important to you. But nothing is more important than your wife and child. You know all the money-making secrets from your previous life, so there's no need to rush at this particular moment. Seeing as it's almost noon, Zhou's mother didn't even bother to eat. She was anxious to get back home, afraid that if she ate one more bite, her daughter would have one less. Yao couldn't stop her. She had no choice but to take down the meat hanging in the kitchen. She cut off a large chunk of it. Then she ran after her. Mom, take this back for my brother. For my brother and his wife to eat. Joe's mother saw such a big piece of meat and waved her hands, refusing to take it. Afraid you'd find out. She was helping her family like this. Don't you dare lay a hand on her daughter again. I'm even more afraid my daughter won't have enough to eat herself and suffers hardships. We have plenty at home. Look at you, your skin and bones. You need to build yourself up. Otherwise, where will the baby get milk from? In the end, Joe Yao's mother still didn't take the meat. She carried her basket and walked away step by step. Joe Yao stood at the door, watching her mother walk further and further away, until she disappeared from sight. Then she turned around and went into the kitchen with the meat. Zhang Guilin next door is about the same age as Joe Yao, but she got married 2 years earlier. She has dark skin and was gnawing on a raw radish. Hey, girl. You never go out. Everyone's talking. Saying your second brother beat up your second sister-in-law last night. Crying and screaming. A few families heard it. Joe Yao, coming out of the kitchen, sat on a stool in the yard, responding absent-mindedly. Seeing that he wasn't saying much, Zhang Guilin pulled up a stool and sat in front of her wash basin. Lowering her voice, she whispered, "Everyone's saying that your second brother's kid, Debao, isn't your second brother's." When Zhou Yao heard this, the work in his hands immediately stopped. He looked up at Zhang Guilin. "It's your oldest brother's kid." Zhang Guilin noticed the confusion in his eyes. She stuffed the rest of the radish she was eating into her pocket and gossiped quietly in his ear. Zhou Yao was stunned after hearing the whole thing. He couldn't believe such a thing could happen. He used to respect this older brother quite a bit, thinking he was honest and reliable and fair in his dealings, like a proper older brother. But after hearing this, he felt a bit disgusted. How could things be like this? All right, I'm going home to cook for my old man. Won't chat with you anymore. Zhang Guilin seemed very satisfied with his reaction, patting the young wife from the city. You came home very late that night. This time, you could see the lights on in the house from a distance. You couldn't help but sigh in your heart. Electric lights are indeed much brighter than kerosene lamps. Zhou Yao saw you come back. She quickly brought out the heated dishes and white steamed buns from the pot, casually asking, "Why are you so late today?" Noticing the dirt on you, she put down the food and started brushing the dirt off you. You quickly stopped her, turning around to bolt the door of the main room, then took something out of the straw pile in the basket and carefully placed it on the table. Dug up some dendrobium. Met an unexpected find on the way back. You didn't tell your wife that you slipped and fell down before you found this thing. Climbed back up. Took a lot of effort. 11:02, that's why I'm so late getting back. 11:03, this stuff is worth as much as dendrobium now. 11:04, they sell it by the gram. 11:05, consider it a small windfall. 11:06, you're figuring on getting intimate with your wife tonight. 11:07, I'm not going to the mountains tomorrow. 11:08, I'll get this stuff off my hands first. 11:09, Zhou Yao looked at the dark brown thing he put on the table. 11:10, it looked a bit like ginger. 11:11, I think I saw this in a book. 11:12, she said, uncertainly. 11:13 asked, 11:14, is that Hishowu? 11:15, her tone was incredulous. 11:16, you didn't expect your wife to be so knowledgeable. 11:17, this stuff. 11:18, most people in the village still don't know how valuable it is. 11:19, otherwise, all the good stuff on the mountain. 11:20 would have been scavenged clean long ago. 11:21, dendrobium, and Hishowu will still be valuable for another 10 years or so. 11:22, then, as cultivation techniques improve. 11:23, they'll be able to grow these artificially. 11:24, then they'll be common on the market. 11:25, and they won't be rare anymore. 11:26, but even then, 11:27, the price of wild, rare medicinal materials is still ridiculously high. 11:28, because you can't buy the wild ones at all. 11:29, you. 11:30, grinning from ear to ear. 11:31, pulled your charming wife into your arms. 11:32, you leaned down and pecked her fair cheek. 11:33, meeting her bright, sparkling eyes, you said, that's right. 11:34, it's Hishowu. 11:35, tomorrow, I'll take you and the kid into the city for a stroll. 11:36, as soon as she heard you were taking the child out. 11:37, Zhou Yao stiffened. 1138 remembering before, 1139 when she said she was going to sell her daughter to the childless couple in the city, 1140 she still felt apprehensive, 1141 who knows if they really can't have children, 1142 or if they're buying her as a child bride. 1143 she struggled out of his arms, 1144 with wariness and vigilance, 1145 and refused. 1146 our daughter is still small. 1147 we won't go. 1148 you go wash your hands, that's why I'm back so late. This stuff is worth as much as dendrobium nowadays. They're selling it by the gram. Looks like I came into a little money unexpectedly. You're thinking about spending some quality time with your wife tonight. I'm not going up the mountain tomorrow. First, I'll get rid of the stuff I've got. Zhou Yao looked at the dark brown thing you put on the table. It looks a bit like ginger. I think I've seen this in a book, she said uncertainly. She asked, is that Hishowu? Her tone was incredulous. You didn't realize your wife was so knowledgeable. This stuff, most of the people in the village still don't know how valuable it is. If not, with so many treasures in the mountains, people would have already picked them clean. Dendrobium and Hishowu can stay valuable for another 10 or so years. After that, when cultivation techniques improve, these can all be grown artificially. They'll be common on the market then. And not so rare anymore. But even then, the price of wild, rare medicinal materials is still ridiculously high. Because you can't even buy the wild ones. You, grinning like a Cheshire cat, he pulled his pretty wife into his arms and pecked her soft cheek. Meeting her bright, sparkling eyes, he said, yeah, it's fleeceflower root. Tomorrow, I'll take you and the kiddo into town for a little fun. As soon as she heard about taking the kid out, Yo stiffened. Remembering before, when she talked about selling their daughter to that infertile couple in the city, she still felt scared. Who knows if they really can't have kids? Or if they're just buying her as a child bride? She wriggled out of his embrace, with defensiveness and suspicion, and refused, saying, our daughter's still little. We both won't go. You should go wash your hands and eat. You noticed something was off with your wife. You originally wanted to take her out for a stroll. Might as well get her some winter clothes while I'm at it. But look at him. He's getting all wary again. He's obviously scared I'm gonna pull some crap with our daughter again. Those messed up things I did. It's not so easy for her to just let go of that. I've already blown through her trust. Gotta take it slow. You take off the shirt with your little magic trick. Open the door and walk outside. Simply wash your face and go back inside to sit down. Only then do you notice the food on the table. A plate of golden scrambled eggs. And a small plate of stir-fried meat left over from the morning. Did she not eat any vegetables for lunch? If she keeps scrimping and saving like this, when will I ever fatten her up? Looks like I need to hurry up and make some more money. To put her mind at ease. Honey, where did these eggs come from? Not long after you left. My mom came by. She brought them. Yo Yao lowers her head and serves you a bowl of corn porridge. Her own mother bringing up divorce. She didn't mention a word of it. You hear it's from your mother-in-law. And remember asking her for money to drink with. You feel ashamed. Too embarrassed to see her. You didn't even ask what your mother-in-law came over for. You're thinking to yourself, once Ming sells what he's got, I'll pay back the money I took from my mother-in-law first. You reach out and pull your wife over, telling her to sit down and eat quickly. You say, handing her a mixed flour bun. Your wife still can't bring herself to steam white flour buns. She steamed mixed flour buns with half white flour. You pick up a cornmeal bun yourself and start scarfing it down. Zhou Yao takes a small bite of the mixed flour bun, looks up and secretly glances at the man in front of her. If he could just stay like this forever, how great would that be? But I don't know how long this burst of energy will last. The two of them are eating when there's a knock at the door. Hey bro, 2 bits out here. We're one man short, a couple of us brothers, waiting for you to drink and play cards. Zhou Yao heard that voice, and her face went white as a sheet. Her eyes stared straight at him. She's afraid you'll go out drinking and gambling with them again like you used to. You paused for a moment when you heard the voice, then remembered who it was. You put down your chopsticks, looked up, and saw your wife's pale face. You quickly got up and pulled her into your arms. Your voice was full of worry and nervousness. Zhou Yao, in your arms, was clutching the tank top over your chest with her slender, pale fingers. Her lips trembled slightly. You're going out to drink and play cards with them again? When you heard that, you finally understood why your wife was acting like this. You rested your chin on her soft hair. and your arms tightened involuntarily, holding her even closer. The body in your arms was terribly thin. She hadn't had a single good day since marrying you. Even a full meal had become a luxury. And yet, she still held out hope for you, wanting to live a steady life with you. You took a deep breath and forced back the stinging in your eyes, soothing her with a low, husky voice. Don't worry, I'm not going. I'll chase them away right now and I won't mess around with them anymore. Zhou Yao, held in your arms, looked up at you with a scrutinizing gaze. After hearing your words, staring straight at you, she questioned. Really? You're not going? You lowered your eyes, meeting your wife's uneasy and questioning gaze. You really wanted to tear your heart out and show it to her, to tell her that you had truly turned over a new leaf. You couldn't resist pecking her pert nose again, your breath warm and clean against her skin. You promised. Don't worry. I'll get them to scram. Then you gently placed your wife back on the stool. You eat first. I'll be right back. Straighten your back. He noticed his wife still clutching his undershirt tightly in her hands. If he didn't know those 3 guys outside were no good, he'd really want to take her out there with him. Let her watch him. Turn them down. Just to put his mind at ease. He lowered his head and kissed the top of her head again. Consider it a comforting gesture from his rough, calloused hands. He gently patted her thin back. Only then did he slowly let go. He straightened up and strode confidently away. Arriving at the courtyard gate, he opened the wooden door. The guys at the gate saw him come out. The one called Air Luzi grinned sleazily and said with crude intentions, "Fourth brother. That ain't cool, man. Your wife just got out of confinement, and you can't even leave the house. Heh, it's been days. You haven't come to drink with the boys." Hearing that awful talk, your sharp eyebrows revealed strength. You roared deeply. "Knock it off. Watch your mouth when you're talking to me. If you can't talk right, then shut your trap." The other 2 were laughing along. Seeing your face was not happy, they immediately stopped smiling and quickly tried to smooth things over. "Fourth brother, he's just got a foul mouth. Don't mind him, let's go. Let's go drinking, fellas." Saying that, he reached out to put his arm around your shoulder. You raised your hand and brushed his arm away. You glanced sideways. "If the other 2 are going to drink and gamble, then don't come looking for me anymore." I warned the 3. They looked at you like they'd seen a ghost. You looked at me. I looked at you, and we were all stunned. That 2-6 kid still had this sleazy grin on his face. Fearless, he kept needling. "Hey, is fourth bro henpecked? Can't even get out of the house? Now that his missus is out of postpartum, he should join us for a drink." He didn't even finish his sentence before you kicked him right in the chest, sent him sprawling on his back, lying on the ground, whimpering. You strode forward, bent down, a fierce glint in your dark eyes, staring daggers at the jerk on the ground. "Next time you spew crap like that, I'll sew your lips shut, top and bottom. And then I'll break your 3rd leg." Saying that, you twisted your foot for emphasis. 2-6 was lying there, ignoring the pain in his chest, desperately trying to push your foot off, the foot that was grinding into his groin, screaming bloody murder. "Fourth bro, I'm sorry. I won't say stupid shit anymore." The other 2 were scared out of their minds, speechless. You were radiating menace, looking terrifying in the night. No one dared to break up the fight. They were all afraid of this guy. When he got into a fight, he was a ruthless son of a bitch. But today was the first time they'd seen him so enraged, like a starving, man-eating tiger. It sent shivers down their spines. You were afraid that 2-bit would somehow bring your wife into this. Didn't want her to see you like this. Didn't want to scare her. If something like this made her afraid of you again, you'd be screwed. You straightened up, towering over 2-bit on the ground, taking your foot off him. "Get out of here." The other 2 were relieved. They quickly hauled 2-6 up. "Calling out to you," he said. "Heh heh heh. Fourth brother. Then we'll be going now." As soon as the 3 of them left, you suppressed that violent aura. You stepped into the courtyard and bolted the door. Zhou Yao inside the house had been restless ever since you went out, feeling like she was sitting on pins and needles. Every minute and every second felt unbearable. Seeing that you hadn't returned for so long, her heart was growing cold. Her stomach was clearly growling with hunger, but looking at the steaming food on the table, she couldn't eat a single bite without you. In just these few days, watching you gradually get better, hope had unknowingly rekindled in her heart. She wasn't even hoping for you to become rich and powerful, just hoping that you could live a stable life. But if you go drinking and gambling again, what will I do? The child is still so young. I can't even take her out to work. Are we really going to have to get a divorce? She was lost in thought when she heard a steady footstep. Her eyes involuntarily looked towards the direction of the sound. She saw his tall figure walking in from the moonlight. At this moment, the light in Zhou Yao's originally lifeless eyes suddenly returned. He really didn't go out fooling around with those good-for-nothings. While she was still in a daze, you had already walked behind her, bent down and pulled her into your broad embrace, and leaned down to kiss your wife's fair cheek. What's wrong? Did your man just go out for a little while and you don't recognize him anymore? While speaking, he handed her the chopsticks and sat down at the table, picked up a cornbread bun, and started devouring it. Zhou Yao still hadn't quite reacted, and subconsciously asked, "Are you really not going to hang out with them anymore?" "Reporting, Mrs. I'm completely done with them. I won't play with them anymore." Only then did Zhou Yao nod. She ate slowly and deliberately. While eating, she would steal glances at her husband, seeing that he ate quickly, but with decent manners. Paired with his handsome, chiseled face, it was actually quite pleasing to the eye. The reason she married him back then, besides him saving her life, was partly because he had such an upright appearance. She was simply blinded by his looks at the time, plus the arrangement to swap her for her brother's bride. That's why she married him even though he was dirt poor. Seeing his wife staring blankly at him, he wondered what she was thinking about in that little head of hers. He put a golden yellow piece of egg on her bun and teased her with a grin. "Eat up, wife. Later, in bed, I'll give you an eyeful." Your nonsense brought Zhou Yao back to her senses. Looking at your roguish appearance, she shot you a fierce glare, then lowered her head, blushing. She ate with her head down. Full, you weren't in a hurry to leave either. You nestled onto the rickety stool, your eyes fixed on her. "The more I look at my wife, the more I like her. Even though it's a time of scarcity, and the food isn't good, and there's no makeup, her skin is still so smooth and radiant. More beautiful than those celebrities who get injections." You noticed his wife's hands holding the chopsticks. The knuckles were red and swollen. You took her slender wrist and pulled it in front of you. Thinking about the sheets drying outside, you decided to sell the stuff you had on hand tomorrow to get a washing machine ticket from those black market guys. A lot of people in this era don't even know what a washing machine is, let alone be willing to spend money on one. With a washing machine, your wife won't have to scrub clothes by hand. Zhou Yao pulled her hand back, feeling flustered by your staring. "If you're full, go boil some water and wash yourself. You're covered in mud." You got up and kissed your wife on the face, then went to the kitchen to boil water. After you left, Zhou Yao put down her chopsticks and touched her burning cheeks. Ever since last night, this guy has been all about hugging her and stealing kisses every now and then. Every time you get close, she can smell his hormones and feels like she has a rabbit in her chest, thumping wildly. She can't even figure out what's going on. After finishing the meal, you pulled Zhou Yao, saying you wanted to take her for a walk to help her digest. On the way back, you didn't head home. You led Zhou Yao in a different direction. Outside, a simple dirt stove was set up. Inside, a woman was clutching her chest, coughing incessantly. She grabbed a small handful of cornmeal, mixed it with water, and put it in a chipped ceramic jar. Just those few steps brought large beads of sweat to his face, rolling down his forehead. Just as she was worried, a man with half his head of hair white walked over from not far away. She frowned and took the dipper of water, telling her to go back inside and lie down, that he would cook. The woman looked at him. The man handed over the half piece of flatbread he had bartered for. "Good luck today. I traded for a flatbread. I ate half and brought the rest back. You eat it. Eating will help you get better faster. You've already eaten." The man didn't hesitate at all. He added a handful of rice to the jar, squatted down, and started the fire, saying he'd already eaten. The woman thought about her own body and handed the flatbread over. "I'm not hungry. You eat it all. Been lying here for ages. Just want something light to eat." The man silently stoked the fire. "Eat when I tell you to. If you don't eat, how will you get better?" The man lowered his head, his eyes stinging. "We ate our fill today. But what about tomorrow? She doesn't care about her own health. Just that little bit of rice." He had to beg several villagers to trade for it. He felt sorry for her. She worked all day without eating. And he felt sorry for him too. Suffering with him in the countryside. He grasped her hand. Don't worry so much. Just focus on getting better. I'll go find medicine for you tomorrow. It'll definitely cure you. Zhou Yao's heart ached seeing this. On the way back, you asked about the situation with those two. You were a bit silent. You didn't know how to describe the man, since you weren't familiar with him. But you'd seen the old man on TV in your past life. He'd dominated the business world for years. After his death, he donated his entire fortune. He established a medical relief foundation in his lover's name. His biggest regret in life was not protecting his beloved wife. He watched her suffer from illness and pass away. You guessed based on your memories that this illness must be what caused his wife's death. However, you figured that Mrs. Yin's illness was mainly due to malnutrition. Eating watery broth every day could turn even a small illness into a serious disease. You planned to have your wife, a high school student, sell the medicine and use the money to invest this future big shot. At the very least, get her back to tutoring before the college entrance exam. The next morning, before dawn, you opened your eyes. You quietly got out of bed, went to the small bed, carefully picked up your daughter, and gently placed her next to your wife, carefully tucked her in with the blanket. After cooking breakfast for my wife, I closed the door behind me from the outside and set off on my way. Today was an auspicious day. Even though it was still early, there were already quite a few pedestrians on the road. In those days, if a family in the countryside had a flying pigeon bicycle, they were considered to be doing pretty well. So most people still had to rely on their own 2 feet to get around. Using my memories from my past life, I quickly found the largest Chinese medicine shop. The middle-aged man with the square face looked me up and down when he saw what I had brought. Then he picked up the dendrobium and examined it carefully. He saw that it was actually Zhu dendrobium, with every root intact. He couldn't help but be a little surprised. He carefully placed the dendrobium on the counter and tentatively asked what price I wanted to sell it for. When I heard him ask me to name a price, I didn't hold back and quoted a number directly. I knew in my heart that he would definitely haggle. Sure enough, the person in charge of the pharmacy knew what was up. As soon as he heard the price I quoted, he knew that this person wasn't easy to fool. He glanced at my basket and invited me to the backyard. The two of us argued in the backyard for almost an hour. In the end, I sold him 2 dendrobium plants, 1 Hishowu root, and some deer antlers. I was pretty satisfied with the price I got today. I left the pharmacy with 50 10-yuan bills in my pocket. With the money, I went to the state-owned department store. I wanted to buy a washing machine. I was dumbfounded when I asked the sales clerk. I slapped my forehead. Although washing machines existed now, they were only used in hotels. Washing machines hadn't made their way into homes yet. The first domestic washing machine was made in 1978. It hadn't been produced yet. But I unexpectedly got a ticket for a 9-inch black and white television. I bought it without even thinking. I also bought some stamps, meat coupons, and flower coupons. The speculators saw that a big spender had arrived and were especially enthusiastic towards me. They heard that I wanted to buy a television that day. So he helped me find an acquaintance with a tractor. 1602 for $2, he could haul everything. 1603 back to the village. 1604 you agreed without a second thought. 1605 then, at the state-run department store, you bought your wife a solid, bright red sweater. 1606 pants and leather shoes. 1607 and you also got the kid a few sets of brand new little clothes. 1608 you even bought several new cotton quilts. 1609 you bought everything you could think of. 1610 enough to fill half a truck. 1611 the tractor driver stared in disbelief. 1612 he couldn't believe it. 1613 that this young guy in worn-out clothes had so much money. 1614 buying so much stuff all at once. 1615 by the time you finished your shopping spree, it was already afternoon. 1616 at home, Zoya woke up that morning and saw 1617 the child sleeping beside her. 1618 you were gone before she knew it. 1619 Zhou Yao dragged her heavy, achy body out of bed. 1620 she saw that before he left early in the morning. 1621 he had prepared the meal perfectly. 1622 golden eggs were on the table. 1623 and sizzling, oily chunks of meat. 1624 if Zhou Yao said she wasn't moved at all. 1625 she'd be lying. 1626 around noon, team leader Wang Sanju. 1627 led a pretty young woman into the house. 1628 Old C's wife. 1629 This is an educated youth from the city. 1630 Li Tiantian. 1631 She'll be staying with you from now on. 1632 Tell Old C. 1633 To fix up a room for her. 1634 Zhou Yao was a little stunned. 1635 Suddenly having such a young girl in the house. 1636 How could they fit in these three small adobe rooms? 1637 One room is for the two of them. 1638 The main room is where they eat. 1639 The other room is full of odds and ends. 1640 Where would she stay? 1641 The village chief isn't home. 1642 I can't make that decision. 1643 Wang Xuanzhu's face crinkled with laughter. 1644 He waved his hand at Zhou Yao. 1645 Not listening to her at all. 1646 He turned and gave the educated youth a few instructions. 1647 Then he left. 1648 If it weren't for that piece of meat that kid gave him. 1649 He wouldn't have sent such a beautiful young woman to her house. 2 bucks and the stuff is yours. Haul it back to the village. You agreed without even thinking. Then you bought your wife a solid, bright red sweater from the state-run department store. Pants and leather shoes. And he got the kid a few new outfits. He also bought several new cotton quilts. He bought everything he could think of. It filled up half a truck. The tractor driver stared in disbelief. He couldn't believe. This young man in ragged clothes had so much money, buying so much stuff all at once. By the time you finished your shopping spree, it was already afternoon. Meanwhile, back home, Zhou Yao woke up in the morning and saw the child sleeping next to her. She didn't know when you had left. Zhou Yao dragged her heavy, achy body out of bed. She noticed that before that man had left early in the morning, the food had all been prepared perfectly. There were golden yellow eggs on the table, and sizzling, oily pieces of meat. If Zhou Yao said she wasn't moved at all, she'd be lying. At noon, Foreman Wang Sanju let a pretty young woman through the door. Old C's wife. This is an educated youth from the city. Li Tiantian. From now on, I'll be staying at your place. Tell Lao Si. Get a room ready for her. Zhou Yao was a little bewildered. Suddenly having such a young woman in the house. How could they possibly fit in these three small mud brick rooms? One room is for the two of them. The main room is where they eat. The other room is piled with all sorts of junk. Where would she even stay? The village chief isn't home. I can't make that decision. Wang Xuanzhu smiled, his wrinkles all bunched up. He waved his hand at Zhou Yao. Not listening to a word he said. He turned and gave the educated youth a few instructions. Then he lifted his leg and left. If it weren't for the sake of that piece of meat that kid gave him, there's no way he'd send such a fresh young woman to her house. Since this batch of educated youth came down, adding it all up, there are a good 20-odd people. Mostly young and strong lads. And just this one delicate little girl. And I'm stuck being assigned here, where he and his wife live. The little girl they sent is prettier than the lads they sent. There's nothing to be shy about at night with my aunt at home. And there's no worry that my young, pretty wife will be targeted. Li Tiantian, having been left behind, looked at these three dilapidated mud houses with a canvas bag slung on her shoulder, and felt a pang of fear in her heart. Her days here would probably be tougher than other educated youths sent to the countryside. The family Hongmei was assigned to seem to be doing pretty well. It was a middle-aged couple, with 3 kids, all dressed smartly. On the way here, she heard them say that the man in the family she was assigned to wasn't a good guy. He drinks, gambles, and even hits his wife. The family is dirt poor. They're almost out of food. Before coming, she thought what they said was a bit far-fetched. But now it seems like they weren't exaggerating at all. It's just that the woman of the house is wearing old, ill-fitting clothes. But she's as delicate and pretty as can be. Her features are so refined, like she walked out of a painting. She doesn't look like a country person at all. Zhou Yao noticed the gaze carefully scrutinizing her. She looked down at her old clothes with patches, then looked at the fashionable, flowing dress. White socks paired with small leather shoes. So radiant and beautiful, she pretended not to notice the scrutinizing gaze as she opened her mouth and said, "Have a seat. That room's a mess. Just a bunch of clutter. I'll have to wait for my husband to come home to clear out a space for you." After speaking, she turned around and went inside. Grabbing the thermos, she poured a bowl of water for the guest. Li Tiantian nodded a little awkwardly and sat down on a bench in the yard. She planned in her heart to find every possible way to get the notice to return to the city for work as soon as possible. She didn't want to stay in this godforsaken place for even a day longer. especially living in the home of this local ruffian. She'd have to be careful in the future, and not let this family's local ruffian take advantage of her. Zhou Yao was just planning on grabbing a quick bite for lunch. Now there's a new educated youth. She could only roll up her sleeves and start busying herself with making dinner. Li Tian thought about how she would be living there from now on. She couldn't just freeload, so she washed up. Wash your hands and come into the kitchen. I wanted to help my sister-in-law. How about I start the fire for cooking? As she said this and walked into the kitchen, she was stunned. The dilapidated kitchen was cleaned up nice and tidy. There was still such a big piece of meat hanging from the beam. Who said this family was so poor they couldn't even open the pot? If they can't open the pot, how are they eating meat? And such a big piece too. Zhou Yao was looking down, kneading dough. Hearing what Li Tian said, she looked up and said, "No need for your help. If you have nothing to do, just help me watch the kids in the yard." Li Tian nodded upon hearing this, and left the kitchen. She came to the small bed, and looked at the child lying there. The child, with a fair complexion like a porcelain doll, was so lovable. She bent down to tease the child, wondering in her heart, this hostess is about the same age as me. She's so fair and pretty. How did she get married so early? How could she ever fall for such a good-for-nothing guy? He's nothing but a local hoodlum. Could it be that the scoundrel forced her into it? That she had no choice but to marry him? Thinking about this, Li Tian felt a chill run down her spine. The more she thought about it, the more frightened she became. She wondered if she should go to the village chief's house and ask him to change her assignment, even if it meant being a little poorer, as long as the man in that family was decent. In the kitchen, Zhou Yao was busy cooking. Little did she know the educated youth outside was putting on such a show in her mind. Before long, a steaming bowl of noodles was ready. Zhou Yao carried the noodles out and called out, "Comrade, have a bowl of noodles first." Li Tian snapped out of her thoughts. Looking at the bowl of noodles with oil glistening on top, she was momentarily stunned. He quickly said, "My name is Li Tian, sister-in-law. Just call me Tian from now on." Zhou Yao nodded. She didn't say anything more. It was almost 4 in the afternoon when the tractor rumbled into the village. It stopped in front of your house, following the directions you gave. Zhou Yao, who was shucking corn in the yard, suddenly heard some noise outside. She quickly put down the work in her hands. She stood up and walked to the door, just in time to see nimbly jump down from the tractor. She was muttering to herself, how did he come back on that noisy tractor? Before she could ask what was going on, the tractor driver shouted, "Young man, so many things. Can your house even hold it all?" As he said that, he went from the front of the tractor to the back, moving the TV little by little to the edge. Afraid of damaging it, you strode forward and carried the TV off the tractor. You grinned at the tractor driver and said, "We'll have plenty of room later." Zhou Yao, standing beside, was stunned by the scene before her. She asked blankly, "Did you buy all of this?" Her voice was full of disbelief. So many things, plus a TV. How much did all this cost? How many ration tickets? Seeing his wife's fair and pretty face, her eyes staring blankly, you walked over and touched her cheek. You understood that she was worried about the money. But you didn't care about this little bit of money at all. You just wanted your wife to enjoy a good life with you in the future and never suffer again. You leaned in close to Zhou Yao's ear and whispered, "I'll explain it to you later. You just stand aside for now, so I don't bump into you. Let me unload everything first." Zhou Yao listened to you and moved to the side like a puppet, watching as the items were unloaded from the tractor one by one, piled up like a small mountain. He was so full of regret. If he had known then what he knew now, she would have taken the baby and gone to the city with you. How much money did all this cost? How could she be so bad with money? At that moment, Li Tian, standing in the corner, cradled a baby in her arms. Her eyes were fixed on the tall, broad-shouldered, long-legged young man. He's the village thug. He always thought you were ugly, coarse, and unbearable. Never imagined you'd be a man with such defined features and a handsome face. He's rarely seen such a good-looking man in his life. His heart was thumping wildly. Li Tian finally understood. How could a beautiful woman like Zhou Yao have gotten married so early? Turns out this man is even better looking than Wang Xingong in the movies. Everything's unloaded. You took $2 out of your pocket and handed it to the tractor driver. The driver took the money, waved his hand, and drove off with the tractor. You started carrying things into the yard again. Your wife wanted to help, but you wouldn't let her, told her to sit and rest. Didn't even notice the strange woman in the house. Zhao Zhenxing heard the news and hurried over. He was stunned to see so much stuff piled up at his brother's door. He was completely shocked. Where did this lazy bum get so much money to buy so much stuff? He's as poor as a church mouse and doesn't have anything at home to sell. Could he have sold the kid? Thinking this, Zhao Zhenxing couldn't help but quicken his pace. Rushing to the door, he saw his little niece in the educated youth's arms at a glance, and his heart finally settled down. Zhao Zhenxing didn't say a word, silently helped carry the stuff into the yard. Looking at the heavy iron thing, turn it on and pictures and sounds come out. A bunch of ants fighting on it. So lively. Like watching a movie. He circled it curiously a few times. Sorry, can't just reach out and touch it. I heard this thing is worth a fortune. Costs several $100. This is what city folks call a television. Never thought my own brother would bring one back. After making sure the only one in the whole village was put in a safe place, Zhao Zhenxing pulled you to the yard entrance and asked where all that money came from. You weren't flustered. Patting your chest, you said, "It's all from hunting and selling the game on the black market." You didn't tell your older brother about the dendrobium. Not that you don't trust him, but that stuff grows on cliffs. Even if you told him, he couldn't help much. If word got out, it would cut off your own source of income. When it warms up next spring, you'll take your older brothers up the mountain to find some good spots to harvest. Tell them the tricks of the trade, and then it's up to their own luck. Zhao Zhenxing wanted to advise you to just farm the land, but looking at his own brother, with a glint in his eye, revealing a shrewdness and depth he'd never seen before, like he was a different person altogether, made him, the older brother, feel like he didn't even recognize him. Thinking that it was rare for his older brother to come over, you mentioned wanting to build a house. You wanted to ask for his help and offer him $1 a day as wages. Zhao Zhenxing took a drag of his cigarette and said, "If you're not messing around, I'll work for you for free. Why would I need wages? But building a house isn't child's play. It'll cost a fortune. Brother, the money. I have wages. I'll still pay family, we'll keep it clear. Trouble you to find me a skilled craftsman. And use good materials, too. Let's try to move into the new house before winter." Zhao Zhenxing nodded, thinking that his fourth brother just wanted to fix up those 3 thatched houses. Who would have thought he'd be so bold as to build a 2-story house? The reason you entrusted all this to your older brother was simply because you were so busy you were running around like a headless chicken. You figure you gotta harvest all the dendrobium before winter sets in. If you stumble across some wild Hisho Wu or other medicinal herbs, you can sell them for money too. And if you happen to run into a Sika deer, get some antler velvet or something. That'd be hitting the jackpot. Seeing as it was still early, the 2 brothers put their heads together and went to find Wang Xuanju. Wang Xuanju, being the village chief, had unmatched power in those days. You gifted him a pack of De Qianmen cigarettes, and even slipped him a yuan. You smoothly obtained the slip for buying bricks. Got the slip, and headed straight to the commune's brick factory. You finalized the order for the bricks needed to build the house. Zhao Zhenxing was puzzled. How many bricks are you gonna need? Fourth brother, how thick are you planning to make the walls? Why are you ordering so many bricks? You told him you were building a 2-story house. Zhao Zhenxing watched you pull out 2 10-yuan bills. Without batting an eye, you handed them right over to the brick factory boss. Zhao Zhenxing winced with heartache. Then he heard you say, the remaining balance would be settled after all the bricks were delivered home. Zhao Zhenxing's eyes widened. He thought the whole thing was unbelievable. Those were 10-yuan bills, not something worthless. Just casually stuffed in your pocket like that. Weren't you afraid of losing them? Zhao Zhenxing realized that this gambling addict of his, fourth brother, now carried himself with such presence in front of outsiders. He had more swagger than the brick factory manager. He looked more like a leader than the brick factory manager. Just standing there, he commanded respect without even trying. If he changed into an unpatched blue mouse suit, people would believe he was the son of some high-ranking official. People would actually believe it. If it weren't for the mole on his neck and the scar on his hand, the one from fighting before, Zhao Zhenxing would have suspected that someone had secretly replaced fourth brother. On the way home, Zhao Zhenxing was completely dazed and lightheaded. Fourth brother was naturally their fourth brother, but he just felt so strange. As they were almost home, you pulled out 5 10-yuan bills from your inside pocket and handed them over. Big brother, besides the wood, I'm relying on you to take care of the other materials. Zhao Zhenqing reached out to take it, but then he felt like his hands were a little dirty. He wiped them on the hem of his shirt before taking the money. He carefully tucked the money into his inside pocket, afraid of losing it accidentally. That's a lot of money. You trust me? Big brother, I'll definitely take care of this for you perfectly. You just nod. What's not to trust about my own brother? If it weren't for my brother and sister-in-law helping out with the grievances my wife suffered last time, our daughter might not have even been born. I would have tormented them to death. Zhou Ya was tidying up the things you bought in the Zhao family's main room. She found a square scarf from the cabinet and carefully draped it over the TV, afraid it would get dusty and get the TV dirty. He wanted to know why he even bought the thing. The village loses power all the time, and you have to put up an antenna. When there's no signal, the screen is just full of static. But seeing how excited you are, she didn't want to complain about you wasting money. She noticed you had bought things for her and your daughter again. Women's sweaters, pants, and shoes. And a few sets of little clothes for your daughter. The jacket you bought her in town last time, she hadn't even worn yet. She couldn't bear to wear it. And now you've bought her so many more clothes. But seeing you thinking of her and your daughter, Zhou Ya was still very happy. She picked up the soft and thick comforter, getting ready to put it in the chest, and couldn't help but shed tears. This is better than the 10 bats of new cotton comforters she got when she married. After tidying everything up, Zhou Ya realized that this man hadn't bought anything for himself, but his shirts were covered in patches, and his patched shoes even had holes in them. Li Tiantian helped hold the daughter, and stared eagerly at the new clothes, itching to grab them. Like a cat seeing a fish. That sweetheart neckline sweater was the most fashionable style in the city. She wanted to buy it herself when she went to the mall. But her parents didn't agree at all to spend almost half a month's wages on a sweater. Seeing clothes she wanted but couldn't afford, showing up here. And more than just one item. Li Tiantian was filled with envy and jealousy. Yo Yao. Her man was so handsome. And especially willing to spend money on his wife. Plus, he really knew how to care for people. When moving things, he wouldn't let her lift a finger. Afraid she'd get tired. Cherishing her like the apple of his eye. How could the village spread rumors about such a good man? Saying he was controlling, it's just nonsense. You strode in from outside. Entering the door, you saw a strange, young woman. Holding a child, standing there, smiling at your wife. Is this your friend? Li Tiantian. After noticing your gaze, her eyes lowered slightly, not daring to meet your eyes. Although she considered herself a city person, and always looked down on these country bumpkins, ever since this man came back on a tractor covered in dust, even though she'd been standing right there, she only had eyes for the little sister-in-law standing right there. She hadn't glanced at herself even once. Zhou Ya was busy with what she was doing. Hearing you ask, she finally realized there was someone else in the house. The educated youth had been silent, and she was preoccupied with putting away the things you'd bought back. She'd completely forgotten about her. Zhou Ya quickly apologized. Taking the child from Li Tiantian's arms, she said to you, "This is an educated youth the village chief brought over," said. "They want to stay with us temporarily. What do you think about us cleaning up the West Room? Cleaning it up and letting him stay there?" Her words carried a hint of consultation. Although you said she was in charge at home, she still didn't dare make decisions on her own. Afraid of seeming like the moment you heard there was an outsider wanting to stay at home. Your brow furrowed slightly unconsciously. You really didn't want a stranger to disrupt your and your wife's life together. But when you saw the expectant look in your wife's eyes, the words of refusal were on the tip of his tongue, but he couldn't bring himself to say them. He was afraid she'd think he was giving in to her. You didn't say anything. First, he pulled his wife into the inner room, took off his outer jacket. Then, he pulled out the money from selling the dendrobium from a hidden pocket and handed it to her. Next, you took the baby from Zhou Yao's arms, teasing him and telling him about his plans to build a new house. Saying, Zhou Yao took the money from his hand, looking at the crisp, new bills. She couldn't quite believe it. After buying so much stuff, there was still so much money left. 2 dendrobium plants, 1 fleece flower root, and that deer antler thing. Did roadside stuff really fetch this much? When you mentioned the idea of building a house, Zhou Yao quickly put the money away. Under your eager gaze, she carefully hid the money securely. Then, she fell into a brief silence. If they didn't build a house, just the money they'd earned these last 2 times, would be enough for the three of them to live comfortably for several years. A stable, peaceful life. But if they really built a house, this money probably wouldn't be nearly enough. They'd still have to take on a mountain of debt. Her family side had helped them out quite a bit these last 2 years. Now, they had children of their own to raise. She wouldn't dare ask to borrow money again. As though Yao was pondering, you seemed to see right through her thoughts. Suddenly, you kissed her fair cheek. Honey, don't you worry about the money. I've got it covered. I'm here. You just stay home and rest. Don't overwork yourself. The sudden soft, warm sensation on her cheek made Zhou Yao's face flush instantly. She glared at you with sultry eyes, reminding you softly, "What are you doing? There are other people outside. Aren't you ashamed? You have the thickest skin." You just smiled and looked at Zhou Yao. In your past life, you were worth a fortune. I've been to all kinds of events. As you said this, you leaned down again, lowered your head and gently bit Zhou Yao's rosy, full lips. Looking at your wife's fair and pink cheeks, your heart melted. She's a mother now. Why are you still so green? You quit teasing her. Let's get back to the point. Speaking of which, my older brother said he'd order the materials tomorrow, just in case he doesn't have enough money. And he asks you for it. Don't forget to give it to him. Zhou Yao nodded silently. But she felt a little uneasy. She remembered what the neighbor next door said about the eldest brother and sister-in-law. Seeing the eldest brother made her feel uncomfortable. You noticed something was off with your wife's expression. You moved closer to her, pressed against her cheek, and asked what was wrong. What's wrong, honey? Don't keep it bottled up. Zhou Yao thought about it and shook her head. She didn't say anything, seeing that his wife didn't want to talk. You didn't press her any further. Over there, Li Tian was standing in the main room. Faintly hearing Zhou Yao remind him that there were other people outside, her face turned as red as a monkey's, but she quietly walked to the middle of the yard, breathing in the fresh air. I inexplicably stopped on my way to find the village chief to change accommodations. The male head of this household doesn't seem as awful as the villagers outside say. Just now, when the young woman was organizing things, she was standing there holding the child. He saw it all clearly. Most of the items were for household use. There were also clothes for the child and the young woman. But he didn't see anything that belonged to the man. While Li Tian was standing in the yard, lost in thought, the little girl in your arms had already fallen fast asleep. Her delicately carved little face was peaceful. You gently turned around and carefully placed the sleeping little princess on the bed. You cautiously pulled up the blanket. Then Zhou Yao came out of the house and said to Li Tian, "I'm sorry for the inconvenience tonight. Just make do for now. There's a lot of stuff piled up in the west room. Your older brother probably can't finish cleaning it all up at once." Li Tian heard Zhou Yao's words. She turned her head and saw her cheeks were flushed red. She couldn't help but think of the conversation she'd vaguely overheard from the couple's room earlier. Her face felt a little hot. She quickly avoided her gaze. "I'm not put out. Then I'm grateful to you and your older brother. It's good enough you don't mind that our family is poor." As he said this, he bent over, wanting to move his daughter's small wooden bed to his east room. Seeing this, you quickly rushed up to help. Zhou Yao smiled and turned to go to the west room, also wanting to help tidy up. Your wife kept telling you, who was working shirtless, so you had to put on a white tank top. Those muscular, well-defined arms were exposed, giving off a sense of strength.